Hello, everybody, and welcome to USB. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to do a recap of the Grantsville versus Morgan game, Tooele versus Murray Spartans, and the Stansbury Stallions versus the Hillcrest Huskies. So we're going to get into that. Biggest thing I want to say is please bear with me. I'm still not 100%, so I've opted out of video. We're just going to do audio only. I'm sure nobody's disappointed by that. So let's get into it. The first game I'm going to cover is going to be the Stansbury Stallions at the Hillcrest Huskies. Now, the reason I'm going to cover this one first is because out of the three teams in the Tooele County matchup, they are the ones that came away with a W. That's right. So let's just kind of get into it a little bit. So again, Stansbury High School at Hillcrest High School. That game was Stansbury takes that one 46-14. As expected, Stansbury takes this win over Hillcrest on the road. Now, they haven't put any stats up as of right now, but I did watch an expedient replay, so I'll do my best to summarize that. But Stansbury started the game off with an interception by number 9 Baker, I believe it was, and that was followed shortly after by a 10-yard touchdown run by number 11 Salahuddin. I hope I said that right. Initially, the Huskies wide receiver game looked promising, but that wouldn't really hold up. A lot of mishaps there, a lot of missed opportunities in the passing game, just overthrows, underthrows, things like that. And huge credit to the Stansbury defense on that. But Stansbury number 22 Raleigh, he would have a great catch over the middle and fumble it, giving the Huskies a chance, but they just weren't able to really do anything with it. Number 3 Rutzel, he would come into the game and have a 30-yard passing touchdown, excuse me, to number 1, Rich. The Stallions' defensive pressure, like I said, was pretty good in the entire game, in my opinion. They made the run game difficult for the Huskies, and they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback for the Huskies. So that really kind of determined them. And like I said, that screen game initially, I think, was really something that the Huskies could have made something out of, but I think that's all they really had, and I think that's kind of what bit them in the end. But again, the defense by the Stallions was very good, and those guys deserve a lot of credit. They did not let a lot of things slip through the cracks. So I was expecting a little bit more production out of number 2, Ferry, but to be fair though, they threw the ball way more than I thought they were going to. So. And there was a lot of quarterback scrambles that just ended up being great, especially by number 4, Dearden. He had 2 touchdown runs, great runs by his part. I didn't factor that in when I made my prediction about him having more of an impact. He did not have a bad game. I do not want to make it sound like he had a bad game by any means. I just thought they were going to run the ball a lot more than they did with him. So I was wrong there, but that's why I'm here. So. Now I did anticipate that number 24 Peterson would get some more touches in the game. Again, basically because I thought that Ferry was going to have a bunch of yards to get him up on the board, and they did get up on the board, but they did more so through the quarterbacks than they did the running backs, which is what I didn't expect. But he had a pretty good game. Some big runs, a couple passes, or excuse me, receptions. So I did anticipate that. Good to see him getting some touches. Number 21, Oliver. Now, this kid may not know, but I know who this kid is. And we've not secretly, but quietly been rooting for him in Grantsville in my household because he played with my son. His parents are good people. He got in there. He had some good receptions, some good late fourth quarter runs. So shout out to him. Way to go. Good job, young man. Let's see. The real surprise for me from Stansbury was number 3, Rutzel. He had, I believe it was 3 touchdown passes on the night. Now, I don't know if it's normal for Stansbury or if it's just the team that they were playing or what, but they seem to be alternating their quarterback every other series between Dearden and Rutzel. So that added a different component from each one of them because Dearden is a heck of a scrambler, man. That kid can run. He's got really good vision. And Rutzel's deep threat, I think, is a little bit. I don't want to say scarier, but a little bit more efficient than Dearden's from what I was able to see. This is the first game that I've actually watched back because, I love doing this, but I just realized that I can pretty much watch them all. I just have to dedicate the time. So I figured out where to do that finally. So I went through and I watched it. That was my big key takeaway was that that Rutzel's deep threat and Dearden's scrambling ability really added a different layer. So if that's not normal, hey, I mean, it worked out in this one. Maybe it works out going forward. Another player that I want to mention for Stansbury is number 36, Barbero. I'm not sure if I said that right, but he had some really strong tackles against the Huskies run game. There was one of them. I mean, the running back come running in there, and this young man hit him, and it was like he ran into a wall. So really, really great strong tackles by that young man. Number one, Hoskins, the wide receiver. Oh no, this is for the Huskies. Excuse me. So for the Huskies, number one, Hoskins. He's a very talented player. Very, very good wide receiver for them. I'm pretty sure he had both the touchdowns for the Huskies in that game. Number 36, Brown, Charlie Brown. I only remember that because the announcer said his name all the time. He seems to be their Swiss Army knife. So I wanted to give those two a shout out because even though they took the loss, those two players had a heck of a game. So just they couldn't get completions on a lot of their passes that could have set them up better, I think, for a touchdown. But hey, that's the nature of it, right? So that's kind of your Stansbury Hillcrest recap. Like I said, I just kind of watched an expedited version of that. It was good to be able to kind of see it because, again, I thought they were going to run the ball a lot more, so having now seen it, seeing what Dearden is capable of doing in the scramble game, I think it put a lot of things in perspective. And good all-around win for those guys. A lot of people contributed on the Stallions team. It's not a one-trick pony over there. They've got plenty of options to get them some yardage and some touchdowns. So it was pretty interesting to see that swapping out quarterbacks each series. I've never really been a fan of that, but hey, if it works, it works. You know what I mean? And you can't knock it if it's working. So kudos to them. Like I said, I don't know if that's a normal thing, but kudos to them. All right, moving on to the Tooele High School versus Murray High School. Now Tooele falls in this one. Murray takes it 51-17. Okay, now in my matchup, I heavily emphasized that I didn't think that Tooele was going to get the production in the run game that they're accustomed to, and I appear to have been somewhat on with that because Tooele was just not able to get the results on the ground that they're accustomed to. 189 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and those 2 touchdowns came from number 13. Vaughn Gritzmaker. Though he had the 2 touchdowns, he was held to under 100 yards, which is significant, I think, for that team. One thing that I've been impressed by with Tooele is that they've had like 2 to 3 rushers that are consistently getting over 100 yards a game, and it's pretty impressive in my opinion. But again, that's based off them running the ball 90% of the time. So I was expecting that they were going to have a little bit harder time running the ball, and I was hoping to see a little bit more out of number 9, Gus Pater, the quarterback for them. And this isn't a knock on him because, again, Tooele stuck with their game plan and decided to stick with the 90% runs. So he did have a big pass down the field, but he also had an interception. So he was 2 for 5 for 76 yards and interception. So I don't know if 5 passes is enough to really critique him outside of that interception that he threw. But the deep ball down the field that I did see looked like it was a pretty good throw there. I really thought they were going to kind of lean on him for a little bit more, but again, they just didn't. So I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if that's, I don't know. We'll just kind of get into some more of the notes here. Now, defensively, I'd say the Buffaloes were able to get, they were good. They were able to get 3 sacks on the night, but they just could not stop the rushing attack from the Spartans that went for 285 yards and 5 touchdowns, which is not what I expected at all. I thought Murray was going to air it out a little bit more, and that's why I had Rosser, who I believe was playing safety for him in the game previously. I thought he was going to have a big night and stop the air attack, but apparently Murray came at it on the ground. So there's another one that I just I was wrong about. I thought they were going to air it out, but let's see. Max Preps says that Tooele lost 2 fumbles, but Murray's stats had them at 4 fumble recoveries, which I would believe because I haven't seen a whole lot of the varsity level for Tooele, but the JV level ball security is a nightmare. I mean, ball security is just a laxed situation from what I've been able to see. They put the ball on the ground way too much for a team that wants to run the ball 90% of their plays. I don't know. Twilla's presenting themselves as extremely one-dimensional, in my opinion. I don't know if that's by design or if Pater isn't really great at the quarterback level, which I hate to say that because he did really well against Timpanogos and Cottonwood. So to me, there appears to be some potential there, but they just don't seem to utilize it or necessarily want to utilize it. And again, I'm not sure if that's by design or because of him, but I'm starting to lean towards the fact that maybe that's by design. So Pater, if you're listening, I'm really not trying to knock you, man. I'm just looking at things second nature here, and those are the only two options that I'm really kind of coming to, is that either he's not executing at the level that they need him to, or they're just not willing to see if he can execute at that level. And again, I'm leaning more towards it's by design. So hopefully he doesn't take that too personal, because he has had great games in the past. Well, I think it was Cottonwood. He was a perfect 8 for 8, a couple touchdowns. So like, it's there. I just don't know that it's part of the game plan. So we'll see. But for Twilla, I think that's concerning, being one-dimensional like that, because if you are, as a defense, able to hold that rushing attack to what it appears to be, if you hold them under 200 yards, you're probably going to win the game. And for most teams, 200 rushing yards is a good game. So that's kind of a crazy thought process to have, but that's where it looks like for them. Now, to be fair, defensively, they did a great job getting to the quarterback. They had 7 sacks in the last 2 games, which is pretty impressive. That's a good trend to see, right? Number 14, Wilcox, was 2 for 2 for point after tries and 1 for 1 on his field goals. While number 22, Barrett, he did his thing, leading the total tackles category with 10 total tackles and a tackle for loss. And again, though I was looking at number 12 roster on the defensive side, he had a good showing on offense with 21 carries and 78 yards. On defense, he had 5 total tackles. So he didn't have a bad game by any means. I thought maybe he might be more impactful in the passing game, but again, that was based off of my thoughts that Murray was going to try to air it out. So he had a good game overall. So nothing to really be too upset about in that aspect, if you want my opinion. But it is what it is. And from everything I can see, in the rewatch that I looked at, Twilla got beat at their own game. They're a hard-nosed, run the ball, cram it down your throat team, and they got beat at that. And ball security apparently was a big problem for them. So I think the key to success for them will be getting more out of their quarterback position, even if that's only increasing the attempts by, say, like 10%, right? Of the overall play calling, maybe going to an 80-20 rather than a 90-10. I think if they can do that, that at least helps their chances. But to me, they look extremely one-dimensional, and I think they've benefited from playing teams that just were probably a little weaker in the middle, and they were able to capitalize off that. So hopefully this game is a fluke and not the norm. I am interested to see what they do the rest of the season with it, but we'll see. I guess it boils down to, when the matchup isn't positive, what do you do? And this is why I say I think they need to improve that quarterback position in my mind. So when those games come, you aren't stuck trying to figure it out in the moment. So again, the Murray Spartans take the win over the Tooele Buffaloes 51-17. All right, into the game that I've been waiting to talk about. And this is going to be, just hear me out. That's all I'm saying. So Grantsville High School at Morgan High School, 6-1 Cowboys against the 7-0 Trojans. Morgan takes this game 42-3. The Trojans continue their perfect season as they run over the Grantsville Cowboys 42-13. Grantsville started strong, forcing a 3-and-out and marching down the field to get on the board first with a 35-yard field goal by number 4, Knickerbocker, but it was all Morgan from there on. Now, 2 games in a row now where the Cowboys offense has been unable to score a touchdown. Now, mind you, they should have arguably had 2 against Ogden, but they were called back for self-induced penalties. So, technically, no touchdowns in the last 2 games. So I don't know what offensive player hasn't been wearing their lucky jockstrap, but they need to put that thing back on ASAP. Van Vliet, he's been struggling, only hitting about 30 to 35% completion in the last 2 games. He's been sacked 8 times in the last 2 games. He's thrown 3 interceptions. I think he's thrown 4, though, because they had him listed as 2 in the game, but I'm pretty sure he was 3. I know, and I'll get into it in a second. I know there was another one, but I thought he threw 3. I could be completely wrong about that. Either way, he's thrown at least 3 interceptions in the last 2 games. The Cowboys were without their leading rusher, number 32, Atkinson. He was out for an injury, and it was noticeable. But I don't feel confident that even if he had been there, that it would have impacted the outcome all that much. Now, would it have changed a little bit? Of course it would. I mean, he's an explosive player. Maybe they get a break and he gets into the end zone, or maybe they get set up for additional field goals. But I don't know that the outcome of the game would have been that different. And Van Vliet had to come up. I'm sorry. I got lost in my notes there for a second. I just don't know that it would have had that big of an impact. Now, Van Vliet came out of the game early on because his helmet came off, and they put in the backup quarterback, Bunderson, who hasn't played a game time snap to the best of my knowledge. I could be wrong about that, but to the best of my knowledge, he hasn't played a game time snap since he got injured at quarterback last year. Now, he plays defense, but at quarterback, I don't think he's played a snap since last year when he got injured at the beginning of the season. And what do? They come in, they throw the ball, and it gets picked off. Now, it was a little underthrown for sure, but I don't know where that thought process came from, knowing that your starting quarterback was only going to be out for a minimum of 1 play because his helmet came off. I don't like that call at all. I get trying to catch the defense off guard, but I don't know. That to me, and listen, I'm a Bunderson fan, okay? But I think that put him in a position that I don't think he needed to be in, nor did the team need to be in. So, we'll see. We'll see, I guess. But, hopefully it didn't rock his confidence all that much in himself, because just my opinion, I don't know that was a smart thing. So, but they did have the Cowboys did have some success moving the ball through short throws, and they were, but they seemed to abandon that as quickly as they found it. Number 19, Fuentes, he hung on through some good tackles, a couple good hits, and he held on to the ball. He did a phenomenal job. As for the defense, I think they did a good job. Now, the score would argue otherwise, right? But they had 2 interceptions from number 8, Jordan Fawson, who, by the way, has 4 interceptions in the last 2 games. So he did a phenomenal job. As well as he also recovered. No, I'm sorry. The defense had 2 interceptions, as well as recovering 2 fumbles to put their offense in a good spot. Intensity was there, and again, they did a good job setting up the offense for good opportunities. So I would say the defense arguably did well. In the end, though, Morgan executed extremely well on offense. That the word to summarize that game was execution, and I'm not talking in the brutality sense. I'm talking in how they executed their offense. Morgan is very efficient in the way that they executed their offense, and I do believe that the Grantsville defense did a good job. There was a couple times they made them march all the way down the field. They gave the offense plenty of time to rest, which in limited big time plays. They had 4 turnover takeaways, tackles for loss. They had a good game. The offense just couldn't get going. I do want to give a shout out, before I get more into this, I do want to give a shout out to number 10, Coulter Dong. He had some good punts in the game. 5 punts for 232 yards. He did everything that he could to set his defense up for success. But the bottom line to me in this game came down to execution. Like I said, Morgan's offense is extremely crisp. They execute they execute an efficient hurry up. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry. Putting the defense in a tough spot, and the plays they run are executed properly. Not a lot of trickery on offense, just consistency. from my perspective. In my opinion, both losses the Cowboys have this year were against two teams that execute efficiently and simplistically on offense. I mean, the more I think about it, there's not a whole lot of craziness. It's just consistent. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be. So, yeah, I mean, the Trojan defense was pretty tough. They had 6 sacks, one of which, some of which were from creative blitz designs, and offensive line breakdowns. And then some of them were just, from VanVleet maybe holding it a little bit too long, or trying to wait for something to open up, and instead of just throwing it away, he takes a sack. Just small mistakes like that. But they were tough, but there was opportunity there, and they found it in the short game, I think. I just don't know if they were patient enough to keep working with that, or if they were just trying to catch them off guard. I'm not really sure, but yeah, the Morgan defense was tough, but it was their efficiency on offense, I think, that really was the change in the game. Because they appeared to know exactly what was going on. And maybe they didn't, but it definitely didn't show if they did. And that's my perspective on it. But with this loss and the Beaver loss, I think it comes down to aggression and toughness. The Cowboys offense just got out-toughed in these games. That's my opinion. Which is ironic considering some of the crap talking you see from some of the players through the season. By all means, guys, talk your talk, gentlemen. But keep that energy every week. That's all I'm saying. And that's what I didn't see. In a lot of ways, I saw intimidation in some regards. And I won't say it was limited to the players either. I saw intimidation. And I mean, the fans literally gave up before half. They did. They had their number, And I would argue a lot of it is in your guys' heads. Speaking to the Cowboys and the fans and the coaches, right? I think a lot of it's in your heads. And you got to shake that, man. You got to shake it. Because, like I said, the fans gave up before half. A lot of them. Not all of them. I'm not going to call out every single one of them. But a lot of them, they gave up before half. I mean, these people literally went from happy and excited to cutthroat, bring out the gallows snakes in an instant. And to me, it showed there was a bunch of fake group support. And it's games like this that show you how individual some of that support really is, I think. I said what I said. But that's what happened. They were immediately calling for the heads of all the people. Right? But now that I've kind of said my piece on that, I would also like to remind the angry mob of something. And the team. Because that was a tough loss, man. There was a lot of bad things that you can point at. Okay? But here's what I want to remind everybody of. Though VanVleet has struggled in the last 2 games, it's without a doubt. He has struggled in the last 2 games. Is it him? Is it play calls? A mixture of both? Who knows? It's kind of irrelevant right now because at the end of it, he struggled pretty tough in the last 2 games. However, these are his stats on the season, okay? He's 101 for 221, 1,419 yards, an average of 45% completion, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 69 carries for 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, he's a sophomore. So keep that in mind. Do I think that this is what the Cowboys get moving forward? Absolutely not. Interceptions and some, mistakes by a young developing quarterback. Maybe he's holding the ball too long sometimes, whatever the case is. Heck no, I don't. I don't see that at all. Are you kidding me? I think you would be hard pressed to find a coach that wouldn't be excited by the potential that this young man has. Seriously, I believe that. Is he struggling right now? Yes. Yes, he is. He is. So simplify it and help him out and get him back in rhythm. In the last 2 games, he's thrown the ball 76 times. That's more than the 3 previous games combined. He'll figure it out. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I definitely feel that kid, that young man, I keep saying kid. I'm trying not to say kid because these are young men. He's got the potential. It's there. You can see it. I mean, if you've watched enough amount of football. He's got things there. Does he have some mistake-prone things? Sure. Does he get a little high on his throw sometimes when he gets a little excited? Yes, he does. Okay, but those are all things that he's going to work through. And again, he's a sophomore. And he's got stats that are comparable against senior quarterbacks throughout the rest of the division. So settle down, right? Settle down. Oh, and by the way, number 5, Jackson Jensen, his stats on the season are 23 receptions, 409 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's a junior. He's still got a whole nother year to do even better. Number 8, Jordan Fossen, 28 receptions, 414 yards, 5 touchdowns. His defensive stats, 39 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 5 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. Are you kidding me? And he's a junior as well. The offensive line, out of the 5 of them, 3 of them are underclassmen. Number 53, Trayton Kinsman, he's a junior. Number 71, Hunter Critchlow, he's also a junior. And number 54, Wyatt Lee, the center. They've got him listed as a sophomore. I'm pretty sure he's a sophomore too. I always feel like he's the next grade up, but he's a sophomore. So 3 out of the 5 positions on our offensive line are underclassmen, one of which I know for sure wasn't even expected to be a starter this season. He was supposed to be number 2. Had to come in for an injury, and in my opinion, not just for my biased opinion, but in my opinion, he's doing a pretty good job. Is he missing some things? Sure. Right? So you've got a younger offensive line, 2 standout receivers that still got another season under them, and a sophomore quarterback. So when we look at the offensive mishaps, I think we tend to forget that there's a lot of potential in these players, and they still have room to grow. We're looking at the right now, but man, I don't think anybody can honestly look me dead in the eyes and say that they expected this team to be 6-2 right now. With all the chaos that ensued from the offseason, some of the unknowns, some of the players that left, right? I don't think anybody expected that. They're doing a phenomenal job. And yes, they got beat down against Morgan. That is true. They got beat down. But they're 6-2. That's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. And I don't think people are giving them enough credit. I mean, sure, number 32, Jaden Atkinson, he's a great running back, without a doubt. He's quick. He's tough. He's shifty. But I saw some things out of number 26, Murdoch. He doesn't look terrible either. He's a strong runner as well. He's a dang strong runner, as long as you can get him going. And I think that's his biggest weakness, is his initial explosiveness. I don't think is quite there yet. But once that young man gets moving, he's tough to bring down. He is a hard runner, and I think they could use that. Defensively, I think they stand to have the biggest gaps probably after this year. A lot of their stars on defense, with the exception of Fossen, they'll be leaving after this year, right? But they always seem to do well adjusting people into their system for the Cowboys defense. I've had the luxury to be able to see it now for going on 5 years, and that kind of seems to be how it is. They're very good at bringing people in and finding the right spots for them there. Number 87, Porter Davis, who, like I said, has been. I said this in my preview, right? I feel like he's been right there all year long. I mean, hands reach away from big plays, sacks. He's just got to get there, and he's going to continue to develop. They were definitely double teaming him, holding the crap out of him. He's going to keep fighting. He's got to keep fighting through that. I'm sure he will. But man, I'm telling you, he's going to be even better next year too. And he should be a junior as well, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So everybody just chill out. I already said this earlier in the year that the defensive pressure that the Cowboys have been able to get shocked me. I did not expect that. I really didn't. I did not see them getting the defensive pressure in the backfield that they are getting. I say did like they've stopped. No, they still are getting there. So there's a ton of potential and growth. Settle down, fans, players, coaches, everybody settle down. This is a good group of players that they've got right here. And did they struggle? Yes, they struggled. They definitely did. Was there some questionable calls that I'm sure that even the coaches are kind of looking back like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that? For sure. It's a big game for them. It's a big game for them because at the end of the day, that they know that in order to be successful in their division, they've got to be able to compete with this team, who's a very good team. Very good team. But I will continue to say it that I think the mentality it was not there. It was not there, much like it wasn't in the Beaver game. The intimidation was in their heads. And again, that wasn't just players. Maybe I'm only aware of it because of the game that was coming up, but I haven't seen coaches yelling at players like that at a JV game until this week. And so similar to like I was saying with, I'm cool with it, by the way, but similar to like I was saying with the players talking crap, right? Hey, I'm cool with it, but keep that energy. Be consistent. If you're gonna ride them that hard because of the matchup you got coming up, then you need to ride them just as hard against Ben Lomond, right? Because all you're doing is creating a situation where it's situational based, and I think that's what you ran into a little bit. Again, I really just looking at that game. Morgan's very efficient on their hurry up offense. Plain and simple. I mean, they executed it very well, and you don't get that without just repetition. It didn't seem flashy. It was pretty simple. Sure, they came out with their onside kick at a halftime. They had their 2 fake punts. The defense did a great job against. But other than that, it was just executed well. It's really like, what is it? I think it was Bruce Lee, right? He said, don't practice 10,000 kicks one time. Practice one kick 10,000 times. And that's, I feel like, the approach that they kind of took. And I feel like that's very similar with what Beaver did. So, and both those programs are successful. They're tough, and they execute efficiently. So, in my opinion, simplify it a little bit to get Van Vliet back into rhythm. He's been off the last 2 weeks. So, simplify it a little bit, get him back into rhythm. I don't know how long Atkinson's going to be out, but getting him back will be a huge help. And I don't know, maybe some of the, I was talking about the Stansbury game where they did the 2 quarterback thing, right? I'm not saying that's what Grantsville should do, but maybe start bringing in some different looks at the rushing game, maybe a little bit too, maybe open up some things. I don't know. Maybe it works. But the bottom line is nothing's really going to work until you can get Van Vliet back in rhythm. He's definitely struggling. But again, he is a sophomore, and I think people forget that. He's had a phenomenal season. He had a good season last year. He's only going to continue to get better. Is he going to have mistakes? Sure. Absolutely he is. So, but I would argue I would take that young man over a lot of the senior quarterbacks I've seen play this year. So, just got to get him back in rhythm, get him comfortable, settle him down a little bit. And yeah, I think it'll all be fine. So, that's your recap. Again, Morgan takes that game 42-3 against the Grantsville Cowboys. So, hopefully you like the recap. Be on the lookout. Wednesday, I will try to do the matchups. I've never wanted to do them together because then it turns into an hour-long thing. I've just always kind of got behind at work. So, nothing crazy. I didn't really go over any stats, so we can just hit that real fast a little bit. So for the Morgan Grantsville game, offensively, Grantsville was 11 for 31, 109 yards and 2 interceptions, and this is passing, while Morgan was 23 for 36, 212 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions as well. The rushing game for the Cowboys was 22 carries for negative 37 yards. It just was not there. Meanwhile, the rushing game for the Trojans was 44 carries for 256 yards. Receiving, not a whole lot there. 11 receptions, 109. The longest being 20 yards for the Cowboys. 23 receptions for 212 yards, longest being 38 and 1 touchdown for the Trojans. On defense, the Cowboys had 70 total tackles, while the Trojans had 52. The Cowboys had 1 sack, while the Trojans had 6. This is where it gets a little confusing, because the defensive interception stats for Grantsville was 2, which I do remember Jordan getting both those. And then 4 is listed for Morgan. And again, I know one of them was Bunderson when he came in for that one play. So that's why I felt pretty confident that Van Vliet had thrown 3 in that game, one of which was a pick 6. So, rough game. Rough game. The Cowboys had 2 fumble recoveries, though. So, I mean, the defense really did the best that they could to give the offense opportunities. And, hey, you got to call it how you see it sometimes. The offense needs to execute. And they know that. I'm not saying anything that they don't already know. And I'm not knocking them. They can definitely figure it out. I'm not out here calling for a regime change, okay? All I'm saying is it's definitely got to get figured out probably sooner than later, right? And you got to get that young man back in rhythm. For the Tooele game, some of their stats, let's go over that real fast. Tooele had, on the offensive side, Tooele's passing yards, they were 2 for 5 for 76 yards and a touchdown. Again, nothing out of Pater, really. I really thought they were going to utilize him more, but they decided to run the ball 90% of the time again, and it did not pay off in the 51-17 loss. The Spartans, they didn't throw it a whole lot more either, though. They were 7 for 12. 141 yards, 1 touchdown. Rushing, the Buffaloes, the Buffaloes rushed it 42 times for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, while the Spartans rushed it 47 times, 285 yards and 5 touchdowns. Let's see, defensively, the Buffaloes had 3 sacks on the night, while the Spartans had 2. And the Spartans had 1 interception and 4 fumble recoveries. Nothing in those 2 categories for the Buffaloes. So, yeah, pretty wild Friday night. I did think that the Tooele game could go either way, but I really was thinking they'd be a little bit more on the scoreboard than they ended up being. So kudos to the Spartans, because like I said, they held a team that's very good at rushing the ball. They held them to significantly less yards on the season. So, or on the night, excuse me. So that is your Monday recap for the Tooele County matchup. Again, be on the lookout for the preview that I'll try to have up Wednesday, worst case scenario Thursday. Get those games going. Other than that, head over to Instagram, follow the Instagram Unaffiliated Sports Broadcast, USB. If you have corrections to any of the information that I put out, I get my stats from Max Preps, okay? So if you have corrections to that, please feel free to hit me up and correct me on it. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, so it doesn't bother me a bit. Hope you have a great day. Keep your heads up, guys. You guys are playing tough. 3 good teams out there. Congratulations to Stansbury for continuing to wins in their season. And Tooele, Grantsville, keep your heads up. Keep driving forward. You guys can bounce right back. I know you can. So, till next time, we'll talk to you guys later.